In our previous video, we built this very basic UI using just a few different types of elements. And I took a moment and I hit the play button that is normally here to start my emulator. And this is what it looks like in the emulator. And I'm okay with this. I was going to say I'm pretty happy with this. This is not great UI UX design, but it's simple and it serves our purpose. I'm okay with it. And you'll notice that if you click on this input, it'll bring up the virtual keyboard. You can go ahead and just click on letters there, or you can type with your regular keyboard and fill in that field as you see fit. You can hit this down arrow to collapse that keyboard again. Remember what I said previously about this edit text. If I enter something in, the hint goes away. Once that's empty again, the hint returns. So this does everything that we want it to, at least since our previous video. But you'll notice that if I click on these buttons, they respond like I've clicked on them, but nothing interesting happens. Today we're going to wire this up so that the background changes from black to white depending on which button we are pressing. So let's come back over here, and the first thing we have to do is we have to acknowledge that we're going to be changing the state of this message, and let's find a way to use the state of this input box. Otherwise it doesn't serve any real purpose, right? So if we want the name here to be the person who is turning the light on and off, let's use their name in this message. I like that. Okay, so before we do anything, I already know that in the code behind, I'm going to need the ability to get and change this message box, which is a text view, this input box, which is an edit text, and I'm going to need to respond to clicks made on the on button and the off button. So, because I'm going to need to actually grab and change these two elements, they're going to need useful IDs, so I can reference them in code. With this text view selected, and with our search bar cleared out by clicking that X, I hit my escape key to close that search bar. All right, so here is the ID field. I'm going to change that to read message text view. It is the common practice to give IDs where you name what the item represents or what purpose it serves, followed by the type of item that it is. This is a text view, and it's going to be displaying the message. So this is my message text view. Similarly, let's see, update all. Oh, so this message right here is saying, hey, look, you changed the name of this thing, but it's referenced in other places. Do you want to change the name everywhere? And the answer is yes, I do. I want to change this ID everywhere it was previously used. Let's click on the edit text and let's change its ID. Let's call this the first name edit text and hit tab. Now when we hit tab, it's like, do you want to change everything? Yes, I do. You can feel free to check that don't show me this again box and just click yes. But if you're not comfortable doing that, just keep doing what we've been doing. Now the buttons don't really need names because they're going to each have their own distinct handler. In a future video, we might find a way to use one handler for both buttons. But for today, we're going to make two different handlers. All right, so now our message has a proper ID and our input has a proper ID, and these two buttons don't need any IDs. Let's hop on over to our code behind. Now, I know that we're going to need to access and change at least one of those fields all the time. In fact, we're going to have to use it in two different methods. So we have a couple of choices here. We can either declare fields that belong to the class and are shared amongst all the methods, or each method can have its own field. For the purposes of practice only, I am going to stick to using variables within the methods and not within the class. First, we are going to need to create handler methods for the on button and for the off button. So over here in the code behind, let's start by creating the handler for the on button. Handlers are very easy to write. They are public, they return void, and then we have to give them some name. And we're going to name it something useful here in just a moment. But I just want you to know that this name is arbitrary. We can call it whatever we wish. Then, in a pair of parentheses, or parens for short, in these parens, we need to put a capital V view, That part's non-negotiable. And then we need to give it some view name. Again, this name is completely arbitrary, and we will be changing this. I'm just trying to show you how this works. And then, after the parens, have an open and closed set of curly braces. I like to bump one of those curly braces down one line. Now you'll notice in most cases this view will start off red. And that is because in our code, there is no definition for what a view is. It ends up that view is defined in a package, in a library, somewhere outside of our code. So in order for our code to see it, we have to import that code, the package that it's in, and the type that we need. The easiest way to do that is place your cursor on view and hit Alt-Enter. Now, if your cursor is on view when you do that, it'll give you this list of suggestions. We want import class. If you click on that, you'll notice it adds the import here. Sometimes when you hit Alt-Enter, because of the circumstance, it will automatically inject that for you without asking you any questions. And that's cool. We like that. So this is going to be the handler for the on button. Calling it some name is probably not useful. So let's say it is the on button click. This means that the on button has been clicked, and we're going to handle it now. And honestly, to be perfectly frank with you, the view that gets returned here is the button, and we don't need it for any purposes this time. So I'm just going to shorten this name to V, short for view, and it's not really going to matter because we're not going to use it on the inside. We have to have it for purposes of the compiler, but we're not going to use the V inside the body of the method. Inside here, we want to do a couple things. We want to change the message, and we want to change the background. Now, when the light is on, we want the color of the background to just be white. So let's start there, because the message is going to be a little bit more complicated. Change the background. Here we go. We're going to call getView. I'm sorry, we're going to call getWindow dot getDecorView dot set background color. Now, don't worry if you're not entirely certain what these functions are doing or where they come from. That's a discussion for another time. For right now, understand that we're just getting the current window and the object that controls the way that it's styled, and we're going to set its background color to something other than it currently is, maybe. And the simplest thing to do here is, in those parens, do a capital C color, dot, and you should get a list of all capital colors as well as some lowercase. Anything that's all capitals is a color that is pre-built. We can trust that it's the right color, and we can use it as is. And they do have a white. Let's just select white and hit enter. When you hit enter, you might notice that this other import has been added. If you type out white by hand, color will be red, and you'll have to do the Alt-Enter trick to get this import. Okay, cool. So here now we are changing the background to white when the light is on. And we're going to have to change the message too. For right now, let's get the text view object, which is our message text view. And once we have it, we will change its text. Now, how do we actually get the text view? So while we're here, we can already see that the text view is red. Let's put our cursor there, do Alt-Enter, and click Import Class, because we know we need that type. Now, after the MSGTV, the message text view, we want to call a special function called findViewById. In order to get the ID of our text view, you might think it's this name we gave it earlier. So if I click on this text view and it says message text view, that's the ID that you and I gave it. But behind the scenes, the program has also given it a numeric ID. And so we need to get that numeric ID, and the only way to do that is to talk to a special resources object called R. R, short for resources, and we want to get the ID with a .id, and we have to tell it which object's ID we wish to have. So we do dot, and now the ID we gave it, message text view. Again, don't worry too much if you're not entirely certain what's going on here. Let me boil it down. We made a variable named MSGTV, message text view, message TV, of type text view. Just like int is a type and string is a type, text view is also a type. So we made this variable of type text view called message TV, and we want to set it equal to the result of this function. this function, find view by ID, is going to take information that we get from the resources file where we want the ID of message text view. Once that's all done, we will have the text view stored inside this variable. And once we have that, we can make changes to its content. So since we're in the on button handler, we know the light should be on. For right now, let's keep it simple. First, let's declare a string called message, and let's set it equal to the light is on. Let's put a period and a semicolon. I realize this has a lowercase l. That's okay. This will help us know that everything's working the way it should, right? And now we want to talk to the MSGTV variable. Dot allows you to get the functions from or to access the fields available of this object. And this object, our text view, has a setText method. It also has a getText method, as well as some other properties and functions that you can execute. This is a text view. It has a ton of information and settable properties. Today, we want to set the text, and what do we wish to set it to? The message we've created. So when we click the on button, first we will get our message text view from the UI, and we'll store it in this variable. We will then create a string variable called message and set its value to what we wish. And then finally, we'll use our text view variable and call its setText method to set the text to the message we've created. Finally, we'll change the background color to white. Now, I'm going to save this off because the off button is not going to be that much different. Let's copy this method, and then with our cursor at the closing curly brace, let's hit enter twice and hit paste. In the comment where it says the handler for the on button, let's change that to the handler for the off button, and let's also change the name of this method to be the off button click. Pretty easy changes, right? And let's make appropriate changes in the code. Here, we still want to get our message text view, but our string message should not say the light is on. It should say the light is off. We still want to set our text view's text to be equal to the message we just created, but instead of setting the background to white, let's set it to black. Very simple, right? Excellent. Now, to deploy everything that we've done here, let's go ahead and click this Apply Changes and Restart Activity. So I'm going to click that curvy arrow with the A. We can watch the build happen down here. Right now it's doing the Gradle build. In a moment it will install. It's applying the changes to the emulator. And uh-oh, look at this. Session app changes were not applied because adding or renaming a resource requires an application restart. Okay, let's go ahead to fix this problem. I did this on purpose so you could see this. To fix this problem, you can either click this link down here at the lower left of the error message, or this curvy arrow with the stop button is the same thing as restart the app. So let's go ahead and click that button. It is now restarting the app. It's doing a reinstall of our app onto the emulator. You can see that down here with the install, and then it says that it was up launching the app. If we now open the emulator, here it is, right? Great, let's click that on button. Let's click, oh, nothing's happening. Why is nothing happening? If you were watching carefully, you noticed that we created buttons in the previous video, and we created handlers in this video. But the buttons don't know which handlers are going to be used. We have to tell the button which handler to use. So let's go back over here to the designer. Let's click on the on button, and let's use our property search to find a property called onClick. That is the event that happens every time we click a button in the UI. Now, here's the onClick property or attribute, and notice that it has a drop-down. If I click that drop-down, it will show me every method that qualifies to be a handler for this button. So we see both the on button and the off button because both of those handlers qualify, but we really just want to use the on button click. Excellent. Let's do the same thing for the off button. So by clicking the off button in the designer, it pulls up the off button's properties. We are already filtered down to on click. Let's click the drop down and use the off button handler. Now that we've done that, and we've saved with Control S, now that we've done that, our buttons are wired up. Let's go ahead and click the curvy arrow with the A. Here's the Gradle build running. It's applying changes. Okay, let's look at the emulator. Now let's click on. Notice the string changed, even though the background didn't change color because it was already white. Let's hit off. Let's hit on, off. Look at that, guys. We have a light switch simulator. Now you might also notice that when we do that, you really can't see the hint text when we're in the off position. We can play around with the styling and we can fix that for sure. But the point is that now we have buttons that work and we're changing the background. If you would like to take this a step further, you can use this input to say who turned the light on and off. And if you would like to do that, watch the third video. We'll do that one together.